Hubbard here at Hubbard's Marina with another Sunday night live stream fishing show. Hopefully, y'all are ready for another great show. Got a good one lined up for y'all, and looks like everything seems to be working well for us. So, looking forward to a great show tonight, and hopefully, you guys are too. So, we're going to get started here in just about 5 minutes or so. We're going to give some time for people to get in here and join us. And we're going to give away free fishing trips tonight. We're going to talk all about fishing tips, tricks, and more. And hopefully you guys are ready to talk fishing and hopefully learn some things about fishing. Hopefully I can help you learn some things about fishing. But we have such experienced fishermen as guests nowadays. I can't even stump you guys with fish ID challenge or nothing like that. But red snapper season's in full swing, and we've got a lot of cool photos and videos to share with y'all tonight. So hopefully y'all are looking forward to that. Got a lot of cool stuff to share with y'all tonight, so it's definitely going to be a great time, and I appreciate everybody hanging in there, spending their Sunday nights with us. Hopefully y'all can hear me loud and clear, and hopefully you're excited for a great show. Don't forget to comment where you're watching from. Make sure you give the video stream a like for us. Help spread this around to your friends. Share it with your timeline. Share it with your favorite fishing club. I'd appreciate it. But we are going to get started here in just about 5 minutes or so. Hopefully everybody's looking forward to another great show. It's Captain Dylan Hubbard from Hubbard's Marina. Hubbard's Marina has been fishing local waters since 1928, over 90 years and 4 generations. Our family business has been fishing local waters and having a great time out there doing it. So hopefully you guys have some fishing questions tonight, because we're going to share all our fishing tips, tricks, and more. We're going to show you photos and videos of what we've been catching, what we've been doing, talking about what's coming up. We're going to give away some free fishing trips tonight, and hopefully have a great time doing it. And thank you all for tuning in and spending your Sunday nights with us. Make sure you comment where you're watching from. And don't forget to share the stream with your friends. Hopefully everybody's excited for a show. I missed you guys the last 2 weeks. I had to take 2 weeks off due to a National Marine Fisheries meeting and a family event. My little cousin was getting confirmed, and I was his sponsor. And then we had the National Marine Fisheries meeting, and both very important things. Had to skip 2 shows in a row, so I apologize. I have missed you all and our shows together every Sunday night, but I'm glad to be back, and hopefully you guys are excited to have me, because we got a great show lined up tonight. Lots of cool stuff going on, cool photos and videos, a lot of fish we've been catching, and I'm going to show it all to you tonight. So hopefully you got your drink, you got your bag of popcorn, and a bunch of fishing questions, because we're going to be hitting it hard here in just a few minutes. I appreciate your patience. It just takes me a few seconds to get everything running here, and then we'll get rolling. We are going to give away free fishing trips tonight. You have to be tuned in to win those free fishing trips. You have to go to the Hubbard's Marina Facebook page. You have to leave at least one comment on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook page video in order to be eligible to win those free fishing trips. We're going to give away a free 5-hour half-day trip for 2 people. We're going to give away a 10-hour all-day trip for 2 people. We're going to do another 39-hour trip at half price for 1 person, but if we get over 300 live viewers, we're just going to give away a free 39-hour trip for 1 person. So lots of free trips and discounted trips coming out tonight, so hopefully you guys will stay tuned. Remember, you do have to be tuned in to win. You don't have to be tuned into the Facebook video to win, but you have to be tuned into the show. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can always hop over to Facebook, look up Hubbard's Marine on Facebook, find the video, leave 1 comment, That's all you need, one comment to be eligible to win, and then you can pop back over to YouTube and watch the show. But when we do give away the free trips, all you have to do is shoot Hubbard's Marina Facebook page a message or email me a message within an hour or two, and that's how you're eligible to win. Essentially trying to make sure those of you who are watching the show get a chance to win, and those who just pop in to see if they won at the beginning and end of each show don't take away from those guys who watch more consistently. I already seeing some good questions rolling in, and remember guys, throughout the show as we're going through the photos and videos, I'm always writing down the questions you're asking, and at the end of the show, or towards the end of the show I should say, we go over the questions. So I'm seeing a few already pop into the comments. Don't be afraid to leave a question for me, and we'll be sure to answer it during the show. We're going to get started here in just a few seconds. We got some cool photos and videos, free trips, lots of stuff going on, so hopefully y'all are ready to rock. All right, so we're going to get rolling here. I think I got everything lined up nicely for us, and we're going to get right into this thing and start it off with some cool videos. Here's a video of John I guess I should say hi to you first, right? How you guys doing? I guess I should have checked my background first. But how are you guys doing? Happy Sunday night, y'all. Captain Dylan Hubbard here at Hubbard's Marina. And we got a lot of cool photos and videos because we haven't done this show in 2 weeks. We've got a lot of videos and photos stacked up for y'all. So definitely some cool stuff to watch tonight and to talk about. So right off the bat, we're going to look at some video from John on a recent 39-hour trip. So we're going to check this out real quick.
Well, the trolling's about over. It was pretty slow today. I think the water's been pretty choppy, especially near shore. You can see it's about a 3-foot sea out here. They're calling for it to be like 3 to 5 most of the trip. I would say it's 3 right now for sure. We're going to walk up to the bow, and it's just in time here for the sunset. As you can see, the lights are on. I'll be turning them off before long so people can go to bed. One of the hardest things to do on these trips is to sleep that first night because people are so excited, ready to go. Even though I've been out here many, many times, I feel the same way. It's always hard for me to go to sleep. But I've got a saying that I say if you want to catch the fish of your dreams, you got to fish while others are dreaming. So if you come out on one of these trips, you really want to make sure that you sleep as much as you can on the way out that first time, because you want to fish all night long. The mangrove snapper especially bite better at night. Even the gag grouper sometimes do, especially in the hot heat of the summer. So it's a bit rough up here. We're going to just stay up here for just a moment. We're catching a bit of sea spray, but I just want you to get a feel for it. There, I'm getting a little wet. It doesn't feel too bad. I just want you to get a feel for what it's like out here. We probably start about midnight. I'm guessing it's roughly about 8 o'clock right now. So we got 4 or 5 hours left to go. And I'm going to get off this bow while I can. Anyway, we'll sign off for now, and I'll get back with you.
Bob, John's getting wet, had to get off there. But we got a lot of cool videos tonight, and definitely some good fish that have been caught lately. One of these 39-hour trips, the 39-hour that came in today, had some pretty bumpy weather. As most of you know, the weather this weekend, Friday and Saturday and today, was not too great around here. So here's a quick video from that recent 39-hour so you can get an idea of the weather that they endured to bring back a pretty nice catch of fish despite the weather. Look at those
Tough
waves.
fishing conditions, ladies and gentlemen.
A little bit of rain. This is a kingfish on the flat line. At night, those kingfish really get schooled up on the 39-hour trip, especially when we're bottom fishing, catching a lot of fish. Those kingfish will swim right up the chum line.
Pretty sure it's a king.
You're going to see them coming up. Will and John are arguing whether it's a king or bonita. Both those fish, blackfin tuna, bonita, kingfish, they all kind of swim up that chum line while we're bottom fishing at night. And they'll come up to the boat. This guy caught this one on a flat lining a bait out of the back of the boat. There it is.
Good job, Bruce.
All right, thanks. Flag up. That outline.
Nice king. But as you can see, the weather was not too hot during that trip. They definitely had a lot of rain, some pretty bumpy conditions. Around these little rain clouds, the conditions can momentarily get a little bit worse. So overall, the trip to start out was about 3 to 4 foot seas. Then it got to a solid 4 foot seas. Then around the storms, it would get as much as 6, 7 foot seas. And then on the way home, they had a pretty darn bumpy, rough ride home, I guess you would call it, with about 6 to 7 foot seas last night. We had a lot of trips, Flying Hub 1, Flying Hub 2 trips, Friday, Saturday, and even today that we unfortunately had to cancel due to this weather. And it was really ironic. We got a really bad review yesterday from one of the guests. If any of you guys are local, I mean, we had tornado warnings here in Pinellas County yesterday. We had special marine warnings. The Coast Guard was telling boats to seek safe harbor and don't go out in the water. And I had a guy, I had a group complaining that we canceled their trip, and he said, I talked to other captains in the area, and 5 foot seas weren't too rough to go out fishing on the Flying Hub 2. So wanted to go 40 miles an hour through 5 foot seas in that crazy rain that we had yesterday. So it's unfortunate because we hate to cancel trips. The last thing I ever want to do is cancel a trip for our guests, but we guarantee an excellent client experience with superior guest service. But there's 2 things we can't control, and that's weather, and we can't make fish bite. We're going to work really hard to find the fish and find cooperative fish and put you on top of those fish, and hopefully they cooperate with us. And if they don't, we're going to keep moving until we find those cooperative fish. But when the weather's bad and the weather forces us to cancel trips, trust me, it's a lose-lose situation for us, because if I cancel a trip, you're upset, you didn't get to go fishing, and a lot of times people travel from long distances and rent cars and buy airfare, and they get upset, and understandably so. I get upset when I get my fishing trips canceled too. Then our crew gets upset, they don't get to go to work, they can't feed their families, and it's a chain of events when we cancel trips. It's the last thing we want to do. But ultimately, it boils down to that excellent client experience with superior guest service. When it's going to be pouring rain and there's severe marine warnings going on and it's 5 foot seas, you just can't go 40 miles an hour on the Flying Hub 2 or Flying Hub 1 through 5 foot seas. The boat will sink, and that's not safe. So we don't do it, and we have to cancel trips. And it's unfortunate when people get upset and they go online and leave these bad reviews, because there's nothing I could have done about it. I can't control the weather. If I could, every day would be fishing weather, let me tell you. And we'd schedule the bad weather around certain days that we took off work. But unfortunately, things happen and stuff happens. But hey, we caught a lot of fish this weekend on that 39-hour trip. Essentially, right now, the only trips that are running at Hubbard's Marina offshore are 39-hour trips, because a 5 foot sea is nothing to that 70 foot long, 30 foot wide, big Florida fisherman catamaran. And those super experienced anglers that do those 39-hour trips, they laugh at a 5 foot sea. When I call and warn them about the weather, hey man, this is what the weather's doing, they're saying, we don't care, we're going fishing. So it's different. Each boat's a little different, and if you want to go on those fast boats, it really needs to be nice weather, because if it's not nice weather, we can't go fast. and you're paying for fishing deep water, offshore, far from shore. And if you're paying that type of money for that type of experience, if we can't provide it to you, we're going to have to cancel. And it's not something we do lightly. It's a lose-lose situation, because if I cancel, you're upset, my captain and crew's upset, and I'm upset. And if we go, then you're upset we took you, and the captain and crew are upset we made them go in that type of weather. So it's a lose-lose situation, and we don't do it lightly. But unfortunately, this weekend we had to break a lot of people's hearts, and I feel really bad about it. And this is the time of year we'd love to run every trip, but unfortunately things happen. So enough about that. I just wanted to get that off my chest. I feel bad. Some of you guys, I might have had your trips canceled, and I know a lot of people are upset because we got a lot of bad reviews over canceling trips, but things happen. But let's get back into the videos here and look at some of the great weather that we had this past week in the beginning of red snapper season.
Before dinner.
Will's always joking around.
Afternoon bite. We got about 20 snappers left to catch. I think this guy has his limit already, but hopefully he's got somebody with him.
I got one left.
He's got one left to go here, guys. So he's been chasing that limit all day long. His name's Ray Bigelow, and
Ray Bigelow, fish low.
Ray Bigelow Fishlow is what they call him.
Come on, man.
Don't pull on him. Don't pull. Freeze pull, freeze pull. There you go.
Keep going, don't worry about him.
Just hold the line.
Now look at this foul Ray Bigelow just got.
That's what I need right there.
Oh,
Beautiful.
and there's number 4.
Look at that right there.
You can see that on Ray
That's a
Bigelow
perfect last
Instagram.
Ray Bigelow Instagram.
Always joking around. But yeah, on those 39-hour trips, you get a 2-day bag limit. So these people are catching 4 red snapper per person and having a great time out there for sure. So the red snapper fishing has been really good. A lot of people are asking about the 12-hour extreme trips, and we're definitely going to be going over all the trips. Don't worry. So here's a few more videos, then we're going to get into the photos, and the photos are going to have those 12-hour extreme photos in it. So here's another big red snapper. This one was one of the bigger red snapper that we caught so far this year, pushing 20 pounds. We've got about half dozen red snapper over 20 pounds so far. We're going to talk a little bit about the size of red snapper.
There are big ones down here. All right.
That is a beast. We're going to see that photo of that fish here in a minute. That fish was a big fish. That video didn't really do it justice, unfortunately. Here's a big kingfish that a nice, excited lady angler got.
Oh.
Missed it the first time. Hear that real scream.
No, I almost fell in. Easy boy. Easy boy.
I'm trying to get out of everybody's way, so I don't.
Easy, here he comes.
Gotta be patient for that gas stop. About to pop. Nice fish.
Good job, good job, good job.
She was one happy lady this morning when she was offloading that fish. That is from the weekend 39-hour that came in this morning. They had some pretty rough weather. It was her first ever trip, but she definitely caught a lot of nice fish. We're getting those red grouper, gag grouper. Here's a video of Larry Miller pulling in a nice red grouper. Let's get forward here a little bit. Nice red grouper coming up.
That's a keeper.
So we're catching red groupers, gag groupers, mangrove snapper, red snapper.
Yeah,
everything's going really, really well right now. And we're going to share a little bit about that secret bait that's
Well, I
been
didn't say
working
you were
well
going to
for us.
get him in the boat. I just said
Nice
he's a
red
keeper.
snapper there. Or
Nice
red
fish,
grouper.
sir.
All I can think and talk about is red snapper. But here's a quick video. This time of year is a special time of year in the Gulf of Mexico. Everybody's thinking grouper, snapper, red snapper, gag grouper. There's one thing people forget, And this time of year is that time of year in the Gulf of Mexico in our area where we get the mahi mahi. We've been seeing a lot of mahi mahi come up to the 12-hour extreme, the 12-hour party boat trip, the 39-hour trip, and Will is going to show you how he rigs to catch those mahi mahi, and he's going to show you how to catch one too. So, real quick video here from Will.
So for these mahi mahi guys, very basic. They're summertime fish. I'm doing a thread fin tail and a small hook. And I see people throwing big jigs at them, but big jigs don't work. They want a really small jig or a small bait with the hook kind of hidden in the bait like that.
Here they come. Here they come. He's going for it. Wilbo. Wilbo. Oh, Wilbo, hook up. Get him. Get that mahi. Got him. Oh, he's still there. He's still there. He is. He likes it. He's getting played. Third time? Nah, he gone.
He's still looking at it. He didn't come back.
There's another one. Damn. Oh, we got a spinner. We got a nice good.
There we go.
And folks, it's simply as easy as that.
And we got one.
Now, one thing there that Will kind of screwed up on is when those mahi mahi, those chicken dolphins come up to the side of the boat, or your buddy's boat, or you're out in a private boat, what you want to do is when you hook that first mahi, to keep the school around the boat, you want to leave that first chicken dolphin in the water. Now, in the video, it looks like Will just lifted that first one out of the water, but in actuality, there was still one in the water. So they're definitely, that's the trick. When you see those schools of chicken dolphin move by, when you hook one of them, you can leave that fish in the water until the next person hooks one of them, and then you reel that one in, and that first fish that was caught that's sitting in the water, that person lifts it out of the water, brings it in the boat. The second person that reeled their fish to the boat just then, he leaves his into the water until the third person catch one, and so on and so forth. As long as everybody cooperates together and you always leave one fish in the water, the freshest fish, or that one that was most recently hooked, that keeps the school of mahi around the boat, and it makes it really easy to catch high numbers of those mahi mahi. So definitely work together, and you can keep those mahi around the boat. Lately, we've been putting some frozen bags of dead shrimp. Basically, we sell shrimp at the marina, so we clean out the tanks every now and again, and we get these big bags of dead frozen shrimp, and that is great bait and killer chums. So some people have been buying that and taking it out on the boat. When you see those chicken dolphins throwing a handful of those dead shrimp out onto the water, keeps those chicken dolphin around the boat pretty well. So in that case, they had dolphins circling the boat pretty consistently. So they were just picking them off in the bow, the sides, the stern, anywhere they could find them. So that was a pretty good example. One of my favorite lures for the dolphin, or the mahi mahi, especially those little chicken dolphin, are gotcha plugs. Those gotcha plugs work really well because you have a lot of casting distance, and they are weighted pretty good, so you can retrieve them at a pretty good speed. Those mahi like a fast-moving lure. They like small lures. Anything real big, any big flare hawks, any big eels, soft baits, they're not going to bite it. Those small little yellowtail jigs weighted with a split shot or an egg sinker work very well. That's what I like using, or a gotcha plug, or one of those pompano yellow feather jigs. They work well. Basically a small bucktail or a small gotcha plug retrieved really quickly, or that dead bait method that Will just showed you, a 20-30 pound leader, like a 2 to 3, maybe a 4/0 hook at most, and you want to hide that hook. Something about the tail of the thread fin, the tail of the cigar minnow, they seem to work a lot better. I think it's because that tail makes that bait kind of flutter more slowly down into the water column, and it gives that mahi a chance to come up and eat it. But definitely either a small bucktail, a gotcha plug, or the tail piece of a sardine threadfin, or whatever frozen dead bait you happen to have on the boat. That's your mahi secrets right there, guys. So we're going to talk to Captain Anthony real quick, and then we're going to get into these photos. Now, just a second ago, we had 290 live viewers. Remember, if we get up to 300 live viewers and we stay consistent at that number for any period of time, even for a few minutes, we're going to give away a free 39-hour trip, guys. So make sure you comment on the video, make sure you like the video, and then make sure you share the video. That's how you're going to help us get more viewers and get you a chance to win free 39-hour fishing trip for one person. We're going to give away a 10-hour all-day trip for two. We're going to give away a 5-hour half-day trip for two as well. So definitely stay tuned, and you have a great chance to win free fishing trips tonight. So hopefully somebody is going to be excited and hang out. Remember, you have to stay tuned in order to win, and you have to comment at least one time on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook video. So not the Captain Dylan Hubbard Facebook video, not the Hubbard's Marina YouTube video. In order to win, you have to comment on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook video at least one time. And that's how you get eligible to win. Then you can watch it on YouTube or wherever you want. But let's talk to Captain Anthony, and then we'll get into these killer photos. We have a ton of great photos to go over, and especially inshore photos. We're going to talk a lot about inshore fishing, too. What's up, Anthony?
Good. Not enjoying the weather, but it's nice to be off for a couple of days.
Yeah, hanging out with your son.
Yep.
We got Gavin up here. What's up, Gavin? He's got his dinosaurs. He's happy.
Yep.
All right, man. So how's the fishing been? I know you've been crushing those red snapper.
Fishing's been good. The current's been slacking us off a little bit on the fishing. We're having to work a little bit harder for them. It's a little bit easier to get them when we have less than 12 people. But with the 16 guys, we're still weeding through them. A lot of the guys do not want to keep the 18 to 20 inchers. So we're having to throw those back, unfortunately, and get the bigger ones. But we're still coming home with our limit just about every trip.
Nice. And now, how are the gags?
Gag bite's been little off, unless you get out to the deeper water. This last trip that we did, pre-front, we were actually getting them pretty good. Had a lot of break-offs, but we ended up getting quite a decent amount of gags.
Yeah, I know everybody's so excited for gags to open, but it seems like in the month of June, if you want June, July, August, September, it seems like if you want those gags, you got to go past like 180, almost 200 foot to find them. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, from a lot of the people that I've been seeing and talking to, a lot of them have been going out past the 200 mark to get them, and just. When they're getting a handful at a time. Some people are getting their limits out there, but they're only targeting just gags. They're not coming back with any red snapper.
Hey, Gavin,
hang out up here.
He's fast.
Yeah.
Besides red snapper and gags, what else have we been seeing out there?
A couple trips when I've been able to get out to the 190, 200 foot stuff. I've been getting the scamp too. We're getting quite a few scamp. Red grouper are coming up. Other than that, mango bite was pretty good. A couple of trips. Mango bite's hit or miss. A lot of people want to focus on that more than the grouper. So it's kind of one of those things where you get half the boat that wants to do grouper, half the boat that wants to do mangoes. So you got people that are sitting there fishing with double hook rigs, some people that aren't, and sometimes those people that are fishing the double hook rigs are trying to use that 40 to 60 pounds, and unfortunately they are breaking off on the gags because they are getting the lighter leader bite.
Yeah.
So it's creating a little bit of an issue with that, but everybody's happy.
In your perfect world, when someone comes out fishing on that 12-hour extreme during this time of year, what would you recommend tackle-wise?
I would recommend 100 minimum, just because you don't know if you're going to get that big gag bite. If you're going to get that big gag bite and you only have 60-60, then it's going to be one of those things where a lot of the people can't handle it. A lot of the people are going to break them off, and unfortunately that's going to shut down the spot, so we have to move and waste more time. But ideally it would be 100. And right now with the current, which we're actually on the backside of the new moon, so the current should slack. But we've been doing 8 to 10 ounce leads with 100-pound test leader line, and we haven't been breaking them off for the most part.
So 100-pound test, 100-pound leader, 8 to 10 ounce lead, like what, a 10-aught hook?
10-aught hook, pretty much 10-aught hook, single circle hook.
And what's the best bait that you've been seeing out there?
Surprisingly, it's just been a dead single thread fin. A lot of the people are using the live baits, and a lot of the live baits are getting a lot of the smaller fish. A lot of the gags that we have been catching have been coming on either strips of bonita or a single thread fin.
Strip of bonita or a single thread fin.
Yep.
The strip of bonita seems to be my favorite bait because you can get those big fat red snapper on them. You can get the gags. It seems to really weed out a lot of those other smaller fish.
Yeah, you'll get some of the smaller fish with them too, but the good thing about it is it'll stay on the hook a lot longer too. So if you miss that bite, you always have bait, pretty much.
Yeah. So the strip of bonita is working better than the live bait, in your opinion?
In my opinion, yes, it is.
Nice. And now for red snapper, your Hold your dinosaur? All right, I'll hold your dinosaur. What kind of dinosaur is this?
Hey, that's my dinosaur.
Oh, Anthony's other son's in here. What's up, Carson?
That's one that's a corner. And that's one that's a monosaur.
He knows his dinosaur.
Yeah,
Almost as much as his dad knows fishing.
Go to mom. Hey, go to mom.
All right, so as far as the red snapper goes, what would you recommend tackle-wise for your red snapper?
A lot of, me personally, when I do the red snapper fishing, I like to do the double hook rig. I'll do double hook rig and I'll do a single thread fin and try to go down as slow as possible. What we've had the people doing is drop it all the way down to the bottom, crank it up about 10 times, and that's when we're getting the bigger fish. And then when the current is going to stop, we're going to start doing people with knocker rigs, like, you know, quarter ounce, half ounce, even ounce knocker rigs, and trying to get those bigger snapper that are up off the bottom.
So I've always noticed the biggest fish are either at the bottom or top of that school of fish. So like if you pull up on a spot, you see a red snapper show goes up to 80 feet off the bottom and you're in 200 foot, you really want to be fishing at like 120 feet down. Is that kind of what you're seeing as well?
Yeah, pretty much. We've been getting a lot of the shows that are up higher. Obviously, I tell the people when we stop, it's like, hey guys, if you guys want to catch a grouper, drop all the way down. You're going to catch some red snapper too on the bottom, but they might be a little bit smaller. If you guys want to try for the bigger red snapper, go ahead and crank it up 8 to 10 cranks and fish right there. Just let it suspend right there. You'll get the mangoes, the yellowtail, and the red snapper with it too. Hopefully the bigger red snapper, which majority of them have been bigger red snapper up in the water column.
So this is deep water that you're doing this?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I haven't been able to get out past 200 because of the current, so I've been really hanging between the 150 to 180 mark, and once this weather is done, I'm actually going to start pushing out to the 200s.
Nice, nice. I know we have a full moon coming up. That full moon kind of does the same thing as the new moon with the current. Now, I know on the new moon we kind of had that loop current kind of push in a little bit, so what is your opinion on this full moon coming up?
Really, I mean, it's when you get the bite, you really got to capitalize on it. I mean, I see a lot of people not capitalizing on the bite that they're getting, and unfortunately, we are losing quite a few big fish. Either people trying to change positions, or people saying, "Oh, I'm in the bottom," and they're just not committing to it. So, you really just got to commit to reeling and getting the fish up off the bottom, and just not trying to change position. I see people going from left arm to right arm to the gut to left arm. It's too much movement. You're gonna give the fish more opportunity to get into the bottom, or they are gonna have more opportunity to pop off.
So when you feel that bite, you gotta already be ready. You gotta have. Guys, we just hit 300 live viewers, so someone's getting a free 39-hour trip tonight, guys. Stay tuned in order to win. The rod where you want it, and you just gotta commit. When you say commit, what do you mean?
You just gotta keep reeling. Don't stop. I mean, if you have to use the rail, I mean, all of our boats have these big rails. If you don't have the big rails, if you're on your own boat and all that, you can always put your leg up like this, put your rod right here, and just keep cranking. You know, sometimes that leverage is all you need. And if you don't want to do that, you want to just power through it. You just gotta keep powering through it. You don't stop reeling. Don't say, oh, I'm on the bottom of all that. You gotta commit.
Keep reeling until he's in the boat.
Yep.
All right, very cool. Any parting tips for these guys?
Stay safe and kill all the red snapper.
Book now and book often.
Yep.
I know you got some spots left in July on your 12-hour extremes.
Yep.
And those spots are going to fill fast.
Yeah, those are. I think that's the only stuff that we have left for the Flying Up 2 in July. I think all the days are full of charters. So if you want to get out, you got to get out on those open boats.
Yeah, the Flying Hub 2 has a few days open in June on 12-hour extremes. In July, we have a couple days left for private charters. We have a bunch of 12-hour extremes with room. But what people don't realize is a lot of times, even though a trip's sold out, sometimes we have these last-minute cancellations. So you got to pay attention to those trips, because Anthony wants to try to bring as many red snapper as he can home, and he needs all of you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's true. But yeah, I mean, the first 3 trips of open boats, I think we went out with 15 people because people canceled last minute. So you never know.
Yeah, keep checking those reservations. All right, man. Well, I appreciate your time, Anthony. I'll let you get back to your kids.
All right.
All right, so we're going to get into some of the photos, show you some of the photos of the killer fish that we've been catching, and we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between our 12-hour trips. We have a 12-hour extreme trip that fishes 70 to 100 miles out, offers 4 to 6 hours, the 12-hour extreme fishes 70 to 100 miles out, offers 7 to 8 hours fishing time, and you're on a go fast, very unique boat with only up to 16 people. That trip's $300 a person. Then we have the 12-hour day trip on the party boat, takes up to 50 people. You're only 40 to 60 miles, and you only get about 4 to 6 hours fishing time. That one's $129. So that party boat day trip, 12-hour trip, is basically the half-day trip for a red snapper. It's our shortest trip, closest to shore. If you don't have the budget for a 12-hour extreme or the time to do a 39-hour trip, that 12-hour day trip is the shortest trip closest to shore that gives you a chance at those red snapper and possibly a grouper or two. But that trip is just that. It's the shortest trip closest to shore. So you can't go into that trip expecting to catch the fish that we're going to show you from the 12-hour extreme or the 39-hour trip. Now, granted, the 12-hour day trip on the party boat with Captain Frank, Captain Brian, Captain Bobby, they've been doing well. They've been catching some nice fish, and they've been catching a decent amount of them. But the 12-hour extremes are limiting out. The 39-hour trips are limiting out on these red snapper, and then also catching a lot of other fish too. So the 12-hour extreme isn't that way, but you have a great shot at it. So I really want to emphasize that and be as upfront and honest as we can, because we don't want anybody getting into that 12-hour day trip on the party boat, only fishing 40, 50 miles from shore, only fishing for 4 or 5 hours, expecting to come home with 2 huge 20-pound red snapper, like some of the ones we're going to show you from the 12-hour extreme trip. But we're going to get right into these offshore fish, because I'm so excited to show off what we've been catching out here for the last 2 weeks. We haven't done a show in 2 weeks, so we've got a lot of crazy good photos to show you. Don't forget about the mangroves. I love mangrove snapper. To me, red snapper is way overrated. I really enjoy eating mangrove snapper. They're one of my favorite eating snapper, and I think they taste a lot better than a red snapper, in my opinion. We've been catching a few blackfin tuna. Definitely a few blackfin tuna out there, and man, those fish are super good eating, and they're a lot of fun to catch. Again, you can see that's nighttime, like that video of that kingfish we were watching. These fish swim up the chum line. When we're bottom fishing on that 39-hour, we start fishing around midnight, 1 a.m., and we fish through the nighttime period. And a lot of times when you're fishing at night for long periods, catching a bunch of those fish, you get this excitement in the water column. You get a lot of smell going in the water column, and these pelagic fish will swim up that chum line. So you can vertical jig for them. You can catch them on a knocker rig, or you could catch them on the flat line. Now, you guys, a lot of you guys are asking really great questions in the comments. Don't think I'm ignoring you. I'm definitely going to get to your questions. We're going to rip through these photos real quick and then get to your questions. So stay tuned. We'll answer all your questions. We still got free trips to give away too. Some nice mangroves, another big mangrove, some nice scant. The good part about this time of year is those red snapper, they're out deep. They're out deep right now. Red snapper, we start seeing those red snapper at about 100, 120 foot of water. That's where we start fishing on like the 12-hour day trip on the party boat. And that's an area where you get a lot of the just barely keeper snapper and some undersized fish and a few bigger ones. And then once you get deeper, like 130, 140, 150, that's where you start seeing the keeper size fish more consistently, and your chances for a big one get increased. Then once you get to that 150, 160, 170, 180 foot, that's when you start seeing those big fish more consistently, and you don't really see the undersized fish as much. Once you start getting into the 180, 190, 200 foot, that's when you see the 20-pound red snappers start coming up, and you catch these great eating scamp grouper in that depth. 180, 200 foot of water is where we start seeing the scamp, all the way up to about 400 foot. These scamp are deep water fish. These are definitely in my top 3 favorite eating fish, especially scamp have to be 16 inches to keep. It's always true. The smaller fish are always better to eat. So a 16, 17, 18-inch scamp, killer table fare. Red grouper also mixed in with those red snapper. We've been catching a few really nice red grouper mixed in with those red snapper. Big mangroves, nice mangrove there. Nice red snapper. We've been seeing a good size on the red snapper on the 39-hour trips and the 12-hour extreme trips. A few big ones. Like I said, we probably had about a half dozen over 20 pounds. Biggest so far this year was just over 22 pounds. That was caught on a 12-hour extreme trip. We had a red snapper come off this super bumpy, super wet trip. It was offloaded this morning. It weighed in at 20.8 pounds. So we have some big red snapper being caught for sure. But a lot of them are these 18 to 24-inch fish on the 39 hours with a few big ones mixed in. You could see Omar showing off one of his stringers. He's got his 4 red snapper and a nice big gag. Definitely a lot of other fish being caught as well, and a lot of times on these stringer shots on the 39-hour trips, they have multiple stringers. Here's some red grouper from a Flying Hub 1 private charter. They had an 8-hour private charter, but since the Flying Hub 1 is so fast, we're able to, even on an 8-hour charter, get out there into deep water. This was before red snapper season was open. This was the end of May, so they couldn't get those red snapper, but they caught a lot of good eating red grouper. Gag grouper, red snapper weren't open at the end of May. This is a typical red snapper from the 12-hour party boat trip. Now, it's a pretty decent size fish. Now, granted, Frank's kind of long-arming it a little bit, so it's a little misleading to the size, but that's about an 18 to 20-inch fish. And for the 12-hour party boat, that's a good eating size, good size fish. Now, if you want the bigger fish, you definitely have to do longer trips, get deeper water, because red snapper is one of those fish that the deeper you go, the easier it is to catch bigger ones, period. That's the rule of thumb. 120 to 140, 150 foot of water, you're going to see a lot of small fish, a few bigger fish. Your chances for a monster are very low. And that's the area the 12-hour party boat trip fishes. The 12-hour extreme, the 39-hour, they're fishing primarily 150 foot or deeper. Now, in the beginning of red snapper season, the current from that new moon was so bad on opening day, June 2nd, all the way to like June 4th, the current was really strong. So we had to fish even on the 39-hour and the 12-hour extreme inside of 150 foot at like 140, 150. And that's why at the beginning of red snapper season, the red snapper seemed kind of small to start. Now that the current's backed off, the 39 hours fishing deeper, the 12-hour extremes fishing deeper, we're seeing more gags, some big gags. We're seeing more big red snapper and some nice scamp too. And you're going to see those. Now that is a big red snapper from the 12-hour day trip on the party boat. That's got some good girth to it. You do have a chance at catching some nice fish on that 12-hour party boat trip. It's just your chances are a lot greater on those longer trips. Here's a nice red grouper from the 12-hour party boat trip. That's another shot of the same fish. Some happy lady anglers. Here's a happy young angler with a big red snapper from the 12-hour party boat trip. It's amazing how holding them further out changes their size. Same fish, same happy young angler. Some nice red grouper on that 12-hour party boat. Here's another, this is a good representative size from that 12-hour party boat trip. And these trips have been catching 20, 30, 40, maybe 50 red snapper for 50 anglers on the boat. So the people who know what they're doing are catching their limit, their 2 fish. The people who don't know what they're doing as much kind of struggle out there in that deeper water. 12-hour extreme, they've been limited out for most everybody unless someone's stubborn and just wants to throw back all their fish all day, hoping for those trophies. And then the 39-hour trip, most people have been catching their limit, their 2-day limit of red snapper, and then also plenty of mangroves, yellowtails, vermilions, porgies, and even some big gags. Here's a big gag from that overnighter. That 39-hour trip's been getting a lot of nice fish. Even this rough weather trip that came in this morning got some nice ones. Here's another big fat red grouper. Some monster yellowtail lately. The yellowtail bite has been really good. That warm water definitely seems to turn those yellowtail snapper on. Some good sized gags. Jim Kendall with another big gag. Big scamp. Man, I love scamp. There's nothing better than a scamp. Some average size gags, some big scamp, some nice red grouper. Nice red grouper. Big kingfish. Here's that kingfish from that video that lady was landing there at night. Nice blackfin tuna from this rough weather, wet 39-hour. Jeff Merker here, one of our new Regulars Club members. Dr. Tony Holoko with a monster kingfish. This was on the troller. He caught this with an X-Rap or a Rapala X-Rap Magnum 30. Just setting that X-Rap Magnum out, and this thing came up and smacked it. Some big gag grouper, some nice reds and gags. This is that big red snapper. This was over 20 pounds. There was, I think, 2 or 3 on this recent overnighter that came in this morning. The rough weather was out there. It was wet, but we got periods of nice sunshiny day and some big fish too. Here is the 20.8 pound red snapper that came up. Now John Martin's a tall guy. John Martin's a big guy, and this red snapper makes John Martin look normal sized. So John's almost as tall as I am, and he's a big guy too. And that red snapper is almost as big as he is. So that is a big red snapper. Big red groupers, some fat red groupers, big stringers. You can see his lane snapper, his mangrove snapper, his red snapper. Keep in mind, he had another stringer laying at his feet too. So some nice fish. Here's a 12-hour party, or no, that's a 39-hour red snapper, excuse me. Some nice red snapper. Here's the Flying Hub 1 private charter going out. Flying Hub 1 private charter has been doing really well. Gene bowed up. You can see Gene is showing that example of what Anthony showed. The Flying Hub 1 doesn't have that rail because this is a 6-pack uninspected vessel. So when you can't put your rod on the rail, you can put your leg up on the gunnel. You can't see it, but Gene's foot is up on the gunnel, and he's got his knee up, and he's got his rod resting on his knee. So when you don't have the rail to count on, you can use your knee in this case when your gunnels are lower. So if you're fishing your buddy's private boat, if you're out on the Flying Hub 1, if you're on a boat that doesn't have that rail that you can use, you can always put your leg up and use that. Here is a funky looking red snapper. It's got a weird head to it, doesn't it? Still tasted good. Some big red snapper. Here's a monster red snapper from the Flying Hub 2. Now this gentleman's over 6 foot. He's got to be probably close to 6'5", 6'6". He's a big, muscular dude. He is not a small gentleman, so that is a monster red snapper. And he's not long arming it. He's just got his arm curled, so it's a big fish. Big red snapper from the Flying Hub 2. There's a slow pitch red snapper on the Flying Hub 2. Look how small that rod is that he's using. Just a little twig of a rod to pull that monster red snapper in. Some big gags. This was a jigging trip Anthony ran. I think this is one of my favorite photos that we've had. I think Anthony took this. I don't know. But it is a gorgeous photo. Here is that big red snapper. That's 21.8 pounds. That's almost 22 pounds. That was this one right here. 22 pounds, 21.8 pounds. I'd call that 22. I round up. I'm a fisherman. What can I say? That's a big fish. 21.8 pounds. Some big red snapper, some big gags. The fishing has been hot, to say the least. It's time to get out there. We have a 39-hour trip leaving tomorrow. What's today? No, today's Sunday. We have a 39-hour trip leaving Tuesday. It's got a super light load on it. I think it's got 35 people on it. We had a 39-hour trip today that left with 29 people on it. This weather scared everybody away, and the weather's really not as bad as they thought it would be. They were calling for crazy weather. Ended up being a lot nicer than they were calling for. And now, because of that, we got super light loads with tons of room on them. And as you can see from these photos, the fishing is good. It's a great time to get out there and capitalize on all those snapper and grouper that we're catching. But real quick here, we're going to get into the inshore, show you some inshore fish, because the inshore fishing's been good too. And remember, guys, we're doing those Fox 13 shows. So every Friday morning around 8:30 a.m., we do a every Friday morning between 8:15 and around 8:45, somewhere in there, our Good Catch segment airs on Good Day Tampa Bay. That's on Fox 13 News. So what we do is we talk about inshore, nearshore, and offshore fishing and give some tips and tricks. But we need inshore fishing photos. We've got a lot of nearshore and offshore fishing photos. So what we've been doing is people have been submitting me photos. All you have to do is email me at info at hubbardsmarina.com. Email me your inshore fishing photo with your full name, what city you live in, and a little bit of information on the catch. Has to be local, and it has to be recent. But you can email it to me, and I'll include you in our live stream shows. I'll send your photo to Fox 13. You might get on the news. And we send all our photos and reports out to the local media. We post them to Facebook. I'll try and make you famous. So here's some of those photos from our Fox 13 news reports. And we'll rip through these here real quick. The fishing's been good, though. A lot of big snook at night on the flare hawks. Just monster snook. A lot of triple tail lately around the mouth of the bay, floating debris. The snook at night are mainly hitting those flare hawk jigs and those big crankbaits like the bomber crankbaits. And you got to retrieve those flare hawks. The trick with those, this is Angelo Rivero in the photo. He's from Largo. He makes his own flare hawk jigs called Glad Snooker Jigs. And his trick is 1 ounce flare hawk jigs on the outgoing tide. The beginning of the outgoing and in the middle when that tide's rushing, a 1 ounce flare hawk. When the water level starts dropping down and that tide slows down, he goes to 3/4 ounce. But essentially, you're slow retrieving those flare hawks just above the bottom, and those snook just come up and crush them. But those fish are sitting in the lee of the current behind the structure of the bridge and along the rocky shore of the jetty and the rocks along the jetty, and they're waiting for bait to get pushed by in the current, and they come up and ambush your bait. So if you're working a lure like a 6-inch lipped crankbait like those Rapala X-Wraps, or you're working one of these flare hawks, you got to work with the tide. That means casting into the tide and retrieving that lure with the tide. That way it presents the bait naturally to the snook, and they'll come up and smash that bait as it moves past their ambush points, like behind poles or docks or rocks in the passes. Right now those snook are loaded in the passes, staging up, ready to head offshore to spawn. Then we have these big tarpon. Tarpon bite at night. During the day, they mainly bite on those tides. They're waiting for the same thing as snook. We have huge flushes of shrimp and pass crabs on these big full moon and new moon tides, especially the full moon. And that full moon flushes out all these pass crabs and shrimp out of the passes. And these tarpon wait inside the pass and outside the pass to catch these crabs and these shrimp and these big whitebaits, ladyfish, mullet, whatever comes by, they eat it. And this is Captain Chris Wiggins to the right, and Alex, one of his guests. And Alex caught this big tarpon. Alex is a monster fisherman. He's from Newport Richey, and his mom They go fishing a lot, and they charter with Captain Chris Wiggins to do a lot of tarpon fishing. You can contact us. We can get you in contact with them and get your tarpon trip booked. This is Angelo Rivera. Again, this is a nice tarpon he caught around John's Pass. Some big black drum lately. This is Brian Cools from Clearwater. He's fishing with cut pieces of crab under the bottom around the bridges. John's Pass Bridge, Gandy Bridge, Howard Franklin, the Skyway. Cut pieces of crab. I'll get a big old blue crab, cut it in half, and fish it on the bottom. And those big black drum comes up. Here's Alex's mom. So this is Alex on the left here. This is Captain Chris. And this is Alex's mom and a big old redfish. Eric Whitted. Most of y'all know Eric. Lots of snook lately. Some mackerel still around the pass. Alex and his mom catching some snook. Got the Salt Strong shirt on there. Samantha Butterfield showing off a nice big redfish. Another big black drum. Stefan Leonelli, just big black drum lately. Nice big snook there from Tim Lauer. Essentially, all you need to know is fishing is great. Inshore, nearshore, offshore, the fishing is hot. Inshore, you want to watch more of those tides. Those tides are really important. It has a lot to do with the moon phase. If you're a part of Salt Strong, if you're not a part of Salt Strong, become a part of it. Because if you're an inshore fisherman, Salt Strong has these new tools like called the Strike Score, and their Strike Score thing is really cool. You can essentially log into Salt Strong, put in where you're going to fish, and it will give you a 1 through 10 rating of how good the fishing is at that time and place. So really cool tool to play around with if you haven't played around with it yet or if you're interested. But let's get right into the questions here. We had a lot of good questions. One question I saw was, why are the red snapper looking smaller this year? And that's a valid question, and it leads into what I talked about, why we were looking there at the photos. At the beginning of this red snapper season, we had a huge new moon, and that new moon, coupled with also the loop current pushing in closer, made the currents really strong. And those strong currents really prevented us from fishing the 180, 190, 200 foot of water or more where we typically fish in red snapper season. 200, 250 foot, that's a great area because right now you can catch big red snapper out there and you have a good shot at big scamp, and that's where the gags are biting. This time of year sucks for gags. Unless you're out there in big, deep water, that's where those big gags are hanging out because that water is cooler down there in the bottom. So, got to go deep, and when the current's running like crazy and you can't hold bottom in 150 foot with 10 ounces, you need 10 pounds to hold bottom in 250 foot. So that's the problem with the beginning of season, why those red snappers seemed a little smaller, why we weren't catching as many gags. But luckily, as the current calmed down, we were able to get out deeper and catch bigger fish. Now we have this full moon coming up here. Hopefully with the full moon, that loop current won't be as bad. Hopefully the full moon won't current us out and keep us out of that deep water. But only one way to find out. We're going to find out the hard way, is get out there and see what's going on. Another question I saw was, how much does fish cleaning cost? Well, when you come out on a trip with us, every fish that you catch that's legal and in season, you're welcome to keep. You can keep it, you can take it home, clean it yourself later. You can use one of our extra fish cutting tables at the dock and clean your own fish at your own risk. Or you can hop in line and our mates offer a fish filleting service. When you're getting your fish filleted from like the half-day trip, those smaller gray snapper, it's 3 fish for $1. On the 39-hour trip and those 12-hour extreme trips where we're filleting bigger fish, like those big 18, 20-pound red snapper, it's 25 cents a pound. The crew will add it all up for you and let you know. It's basically essentially a service, and then also you can kind of tip if you want to as well. It's all based on service. It's totally a service industry. Those guys are like waiters or waitresses on the water. So if they do a good job for you, you can take care of them. You can do whatever the heck you want. As long as you are out fishing and having a good time with us, that's all we care about. but that's how much fish cleaning is, to answer your question. A few people were asking about how the 12-hour extreme trips are doing. We kind of got into that a little bit where we showed you how those 12-hour extreme trips are doing and some of those big fish you're catching. Essentially, the 12-hour extreme trips are doing really, really, really well. Typically, almost every trip so far is limited out on red snapper, and then they've got a few nice big gags and a few nice big scamp, and then some mangrove snapper, some other fish mixed in as well. Now, a lot of gags are getting broke off. We're going to talk here in a little bit about the gag grouper tackle and some bait tips and tricks and tackle for gags and red snapper, so stay tuned. We're going to wrap this up here pretty soon, though, so you don't have to stay tuned too much longer. Another question was, where do you target red snapper? What type of structure? Are you looking for any sort of structure? Typically, red snapper, they really, really like big structure and deeper water. Again, you're going to start finding them at about 100, 120 foot, but you really want to get out there to 140 to about 160 foot to start finding those bigger fish and more consistent legal size fish. And then for the real big ones, you want to be out there about 180, 200 foot or more. Wrecks, springs, big rock piles, big ledges, anything that's holding a lot of bait will hold those aggressive red snapper. Super important that you're venting or descending your fish. So often people yell at people for holding trout out of the water or holding a snook wrong or breaking a bass's jaw. Inshore, people are such good stewards of our fishery, making sure fish are held right, they're not out of the water too long, and people get accosted for doing the wrong thing. Offshore, people go offshore this time of year, red snapper season, everybody and their brothers offshore, and we see these photos of people holding up red snapper with 10 dead red snapper floating behind them, and that's not okay. We got to work together to fix that, and it's really easy to fix that. All you have to do is vent your fish or descend your fish, and we have it right on our website. When you go to hubbardsmarina.com, right on our website, you can click fishing trips, and under fishing trips, you can go down to one of our 39 or 44-hour trips. And on these, any of our long-range trips, our 12-hour extreme, our 39-hour, 44-hour, when you scroll down on the right-hand side, we have a lot of cool videos, of course, telling you more about the trip. But we have a link right here with Salt Strong, the do's and don'ts of how to vent a fish. And this article is super helpful. If you're going fishing with us, with your buddy, on somebody else's boat, on another party boat, I don't care. If you're fishing beyond 80, 90 foot of water, you must know how to vent a fish, and you must have a venting tool. And if you go on a boat where the mates or the captain isn't venting fish before throwing them back, call me, email me, I don't care, and I'll reach out to them. I'm not going to throw them under the bus or blast them online or anything like that, but I want to make sure we're all working together, because there's some videos floating around. I was at that National Marine Fisheries meeting, and there were some videos floating around of a certain boat in a certain other state. Wasn't our state, wasn't a boat anybody would know, but they had a trail of floating fish behind them, and that is not a good look for our industry. It's not good for the science, fishery science, and fisheries managers to see, because they are going to drop the hammer on us with regulation and stuff you and I don't want to see. We work so hard to get this access to the red snapper fishery, and it will be shut down if we're throwing dead fish to float away. If you release a fish deeper than 70, 80, 90 feet of water, you must vent that fish or descend that fish. If you're going on a 39-hour or 44-hour with us, you are not allowed on the boat until you have a venting tool. You can buy one in our office, or I'll give you a free one on the dock. And on the ride out, we're going to show you how to vent the fish. But in your confirmation email, right there on the website I just showed you, is a link to learn more about it. If you're going on your buddy's boat, you're not going out on my boat, you're going out on someone else's boat, whatever. Check it out, guys. Learn how to vent fish. Tell your friends. Pass the link around. I don't care. Make your own link. If you don't like mine, find someone who does it better. But simple thing is, we got to all know how to do it and learn more about it. I'll go ahead and copy and paste that article that link to the article in both of the comment or both of the chat boxes here. So check it out after we're done, please. Look it up. So what in the world was I talking about before I got distracted? Oh, structure. So to target red snapper, ledges, big ledges, rock piles, springs, wrecks out there in deeper water. Another thing somebody was asking about was the secret bait, what's working best. Anthony mentioned it in that video. Definitely bonita strips has been the secret bait lately. Bonita strips have been working on the Flying Hub 2 for gags. Bonita strips have been working on the 12-hour extreme trip and the 39-hour for red snapper. So we're catching a little bit of everything on those bonita strips. They stay on the hook well. They're super oily and smelly. They attract in the fish. You get good action on them, and we've been catching big fish on them. We sell bonita whole in our office. You can buy it in the office when you're checking out on a trip and take it out on a trip and fillet it and strip it yourself. Or on our 39 or 44-hour trips, you can troll for them. If you're on a 12-hour trip, you can't troll on those trips. The boat's moving too fast. You have to either buy it in the office or bring your own. On the 39 or 44-hour trip, you can troll on the way out and maybe catch your own fresh bonita, or you can buy it in the office or bring your own, whatever you want to do. But bonita strips work really well, and essentially what you do is you take the bonita and you fillet it like you were going to eat it, and then flip that fillet over and cut strips lengthwise. I don't cut them to any certain length, but if I have a bonita that happens to be 30 inches long, a couple of my strips will be 30 inches long. And basically, you want a good size strip. So if you have a small bonita, you're going to have short strips. If you have a big bonita, you're going to have longer strips. You don't want a super obnoxious 18-inch strip, but you want as big of a strip as you can get out of that fish, and you don't want anything longer than like 14, 16 inches, or it's going to get tangled too much on the way to bottom. Remember, the longer the strip, you got to drop it slower to bottom, but those bonita strips work really well. And we have bonita, we sell it right in our shop, and we're going to try to do our best to keep it in stock as much as we can. But I had 3 cases of it, and this 39-hour trip today bought it all. So we're going to order more, and we still have a couple of them left in the shop for the next couple days. Somebody asked about the 12-hour night snapper trip. Yes, we're still offering those 12-hour night snapper trips, and yes, we still catch a lot of mangroves on them. Now, those 12-hour night snapper trips, we don't really catch red snapper on those trips. That is a night mangrove snapper trip. Occasionally, we catch red snapper on them, but that trip does not go out far enough, and we do not target red snapper on the 12-hour night snapper trip. The 12-hour night snapper trip runs outside of red snapper season. It's focused mainly on mangrove snapper, but from time to time we do run across them on that trip. And the mangrove snapper bite, the yellowtail snapper, the vermilion snapper, they're all biting very well. Snappers spawn in the summertime from early May until around September. The snapper bite mangroves, yellowtails, lanes, whatever, they all bite well. So it's a great time of year for that 12-hour night trip. Plus, it's too freaking hot during the day, so you might as well go fishing at night, right? Also, some people were asking about size limits and bag limits, specifically about those mahi-mahi. Well, mahi-mahi in the Gulf of Mexico don't have any size limit or bag limits. So those little chicken dolphins, we can catch as many of them as we want, as small as we want, but we try to make sure they're big enough to get a good size fillet off of. And if we start catching a whole ton of them, typically we'll pull away from them. We don't want to decimate a whole school, but you definitely could if you wanted to, and that's not what we're into, but definitely they're pretty easy to catch a bunch of them. But as far as size limits, bag limits, what's in season when, if you go to hubbardsmarina.com, once you're on our website, click fishing trips, you can scroll down to fishing rules and regs, and on the fishing rules and regulations page, there's a link to download the Fish Rules app. This is the app I use to check the regulations when I have a question or when someone asks me about a fish that we don't target a lot. This is where I go, the Fish Rules app. Also, if you scroll further down, you can get the link to the Gulf of Mexico Fishery Management Council website. Just click that little photo and it takes you to their most recent regulations that stays up to date really well. So those are the 2 ways you can check size limits, bag limits, and you can check what's in season when. that stuff changes a lot, so make sure you always look it up. And a lot of times people will book their trips in January with us based on what's open when, and then when it comes to October that year, they can sometimes be a little upset that the season's changed. Well, we always try to update you when seasons change here in our videos and in our emails, but if you don't read any of that, you don't watch the show, the only way you can stay up to date is by checking that out. So make sure you always check it out. Another question I saw was about our regulars club. We do have a regulars club, and essentially that's a loyalty program. So it starts on the beginning of each year and it ends at the end of each year. So if you signed up today, you would essentially only get about a 6-month membership instead of a 12-month membership. But what it is it gives you discounts on the trip, discounts in our tackle shop, but it's only because you go fishing a lot. So you gotta commit to doing 10, 15, 20 fishing trips in a year, and then you qualify for that regulars club. All the same rules apply to the regulars. We treat you the same as we treat everybody, and that's excellent client experience with superior guest service. But you do get some discounts in the tackle shop, discounts on the trips, and it basically makes it affordable for you to go fishing more often. That's the goal of the Regulars Club. If you're interested in it, shoot me an email to info, @hubbardsmarina.com. I can send you a bunch of information on the Regulars Club, but bear with me. I've been out of town for 5 days at the National Marine Fisheries meeting. I've been swamped this weekend, still trying to climb out of the hole that I'm left. I've got like 150 unread emails and like 30 phone calls to return. So bear with me if you shoot me a bunch of emails about the Regulars Club. I'll get to it as soon as I can. I'll send you all that information. And if you don't want to sign up today for a 6-month membership, I can always email you the information. If you're excited about it, if you want to join it, I can put you on the Regulars Club for 2020. So like in November or December of this year, we're going to start sign-ups for 2020. And that's when I'll call you. But you got to let me know you want to get on the 2020 Regulars Club waiting list after I send you the information. But all that's in the email. I make it easy for you guys. Another question was about our 39-hour trip pricing. Another time where our website is a great tool. Keep in mind, guys, I didn't create. I put a lot of the information on the website, and I didn't even put it on the website. I just wrote it, and someone else put it on the website because I don't know how to do all this stuff. But I've got a guy for that, and he's really good at what he does, and our website is awesome. So whenever you're worried about, or whenever you're interested in what trips we offer, under fishing trips, it lists all our options. And you can click on fishing tips, or fishing trip info. Where is it? There it is. Fishing trip information. And that fishing trip information page is going to list all our trips, how far out they go, and what the price is. So right here you can see all the different trips from the 44-hour all the way to the 5-hour day trip. And that 39-hour trip is $369 plus tax. It goes 70 to 100 miles out. You get about 20 hours of fishing time in that 2-day bag limit. Our 12-hour extreme goes 70 to 100 miles. It's $300. These are the 2 trips that you want to do if you're going red snapper and gag grouper fishing this time of year, because those are the 2 trips that are going to give you the best chance for the most and largest red snapper and possibly some gag grouper as well. The 44-hour trip, we've got 1 of those or 2 of those during red snapper season, so the numbers are very limited on the 44-hour trips as far as availability, just because there's only 2 of them the whole red snapper season. But we do have a few spots open. They were sold out. Now they're not. People keep falling off the trip. So if you're interested in the trip, definitely call back, check on it. A lot of times spots will open up. You got to stay tuned. You got to keep checking them. So definitely great options for you. But to answer the question, a 39-hour trip is $369 plus tax. So I'm going to real quickly get into tackle. So this is fishing tips and tricks. We had a lot of people asking about gag grouper, red snapper. For gag grouper, essentially you don't want to use less than 80-pound tests when you're targeting gags. For me, I would use at least 100-pound tests, and if I was going for a big gag, 125-pound test. Now, with 125 pound test, you're using like a 10 or a 12-aught circle hook. With a 80-pound test, you could probably get away with like an 8-aught circle hook. So you want to use a big, strong leader, a big, strong hook, 8 to 10 ounce leads, and you want to use 80 to 100-pound main line. Now, monofilament is best when you're fishing for grouper. That way, you're able to really get that fish up off the bottom and then also be able to not lose that fish. Monofilament is best for red snapper season because there's more people around as well. Now, you can use braided line, especially when you're fishing deeper water, but you want to use a long top shot. That way, that gag won't be able to spit your hook on the way up to the surface because they'll tear that hole in their mouth and they'll spit their hook. That monofilament gives you that stretch. He's not able to spit your hook as easily with that monofilament. And also, gags are smart. If you don't have a long top shot, they're going to see the braid. They're never going to bite. A big gag got big for a reason. They're smart fish. They're going to watch that bait. The only way you're going to get that big gag to bite is presenting that bait naturally, making sure you're holding bottom, and making sure you're using the right bait and the right tackle, meaning simple is better, meaning you got to use heavy tackle. And when you get that lucky bite, you got to put your life, your blood, sweat, and tears into reeling as hard and as fast as you can until that fish is in the boat. You can't just reel down and all of a sudden your rod's bending and you're like, oh, I'm in the bottom, or oh, let me switch hands, or oh, let me move it to my gut. None of that works. You're screwed. That fish broke you off. He got you in the bottom. You just ruined the bite for everybody on the boat because those gags get you in the bottom and they sit down there and they grunt and they shut down the bite. If you break off 3 or 4 gags in a row, time to pull the anchor and move because most of the time the bite just shuts down. Even red snappers stop feeding because those gags sit in the bottom and grunt. So you really, really got to pay attention. If you're dropping a live bait down or a big bonita strip or any type of big bait to the bottom, you got to be ready for that gag. Now, if you're dropping a big bait down and you want to target a red snapper, don't go all the way to the bottom. Right now, those big red snapper are super aggressive. They're up in the water column. Drop that bait down to bottom much slower by just putting more pressure on the reel with your thumb. You put more pressure on that spool with your thumb, it's going to slow the spool down. That bait is going to go down to bottom more slowly. And when you feel those pecks from those small vermilion and yellowtail start, stop it with your thumb and wait a minute. And a lot of times you're going to get that big red snapper to hit your bait before you even hit bottom. Now, if you're over the limit or if it's undersized, it makes it easier to vent and release that fish because you didn't bring them all the way up from the bottom. You're also not going to break off. If you're using 60-pound tests, don't drop a big bait to the bottom because you're just going to get broke off and you're just going to shut down the bite for other people on the boat. And if you're fishing with your buddies and there's 4 or 5 of you, they might get upset at you. So definitely make sure if you're using light tackle, don't drop down to the bottom unless you're using a small bait for a mangrove snapper. Now, if you're dropping down to the bottom, 80-pound minimum, but really it should be 100-pound minimum. For red snapper, 60-pound minimum, but really you should be 80-pound minimum because you might get that big gag grouper. So essentially this time of year when gags are open, 60 pounds the lightest you want to go, and you would drop that to bottom only if you're using a small piece of cut dead bait, or if you're using a live bait or a big piece of dead bait, you wouldn't drop that to bottom because you don't want to get broke off. On the bottom, 80-pound minimum if you're using any sort of big dead bait or big live bait, but really 100-pound would be recommended for that reason. Gags, they really like those thread fins. Something about those thread fins lately, we've been catching a lot of gags on them. The bigger thread fins, just trim the tail or use a strip of bonita or use 2 thread fins, put the eye of the hook or put the barb of the hook through both eye sockets and just put 2 threads on there, cut the tails, drop it at bottom more slowly because those are going to spin. Also, big live baits work for gag grouper as well, especially pigfish, one of my favorite baits for gags. Red snapper, on the other hand, big strips of bonita, live bait, vertical jigs. I mean, those things would eat just about anything. So there's no real secret to the red snapper other than drop your bait down to bottom more slowly and make sure you're using the right tackle. That way you don't get broke off by that gag. those red snapper will bite just about anything, like I mentioned before. So if you're using heavy 60 to 80 pound leader, you're still going to catch a red snapper, and you have a shot for those gags too. Now, another thing I heard was about J hooks. Really, for gags and red snapper and for amberjack, anything that comes up and bites that bait and runs, you want to use circle hooks. I'd recommend circle hooks for red snapper and gags, because they're not going to really peck at your bait like a mangrove snapper would. They're going to come up and swallow it and run on you. So a circle hook works really well for that reason. Another question was about knocker rigging. Now, knocker rigging is not recommended this time of year. You really just can't do it. There's too many people on these red snapper trips. Now, the 39-hour trip that went out today, the 39-hour trip that's going out Tuesday, they've got weird light loads on them because people got scared of the weather and canceled. And the weather ended up being nicer than expected, so they lost out on their their trips, unfortunately. And the weather sucks, because the weather definitely was calling super high and then it got nicer. So that stinks when people have to cancel their flights, because a lot of people are traveling in. So if the weather's not looking good, they cancel their trips. They decide to go to work instead, and I understand it. So I didn't mean to laugh there, but essentially, long story short, we have some light trips. So on lighter loads, you can get away with knocker rigging. On sold out red snapper trips, there's no way you can knocker rig. But light knocker rigging is important. If you're using more than a 1 ounce lead, you're not knocker rig fishing. You were just too lazy to put a swivel on. The knocker rig, the idea is that bait descends to bottom very slowly. So in order for that bait to descend to bottom really slowly, you don't put a swivel or a line-to-line knot anywhere close to that hook. You want an egg sinker on your line, and you want that egg sinker to travel freely up and down your main line. And then you want to use a hook, and typically a dead cut piece of thread fin for those red snapper, or a tail hooked pinfish gives you a chance at some blackfin tuna or some big mangroves or maybe a red snapper up in the water column. And then you use a small egg sinker, like a 3/4 ounce egg sinker if you're in super deep water, or a 1/4 ounce egg sinker if you're in less than 100 foot of water. Essentially, you want super light lead, just enough lead to get that bait drifting down to bottom. The further your egg sinker goes from your hook, the slower that bait descends to bottom, and the more opportunity one of those big red snapper or big mangroves have a chance to come up and crush that bait. So knocker rig fishing means you're fishing the water column. You're not fishing on the bottom. You're fishing up off the bottom. So that's the idea behind knocker rigging and the proper approach to it. Now, a few announcements real quick. Fox 13, I talked about it before. We're doing that Fox 13 show live every Friday morning between about 8:15 a.m. about 8:40 a.m. So make sure you check it out. Email me any inshore fishing photos that you got. Make sure they're recent, within the last 7 days. Make sure that you include your full name and what city you live in, and a little information about the catch, and I'll throw you on the Fox 13 show. And tune in. Help me out. If you like it, contact Fox 13's news desk. Tell them you like the Good Catch segment with Hubbard's Marina. I'd appreciate it. Bass Pro Shops. Our Bass Pro Shop seminars we do every month. Well, we don't do them in red snapper season. So June and July, no Bass Pro Shop seminars. We'll start those back up in August. Also, we have that light load 39-hour trip I talked about coming up Tuesday. We've got a few 12-hour extremes with room in June that opened up due to cancellations, and then in July we've got a lot of 12-hour extreme room left, and then the 12-hour day trip on the party boat, we have plenty of availability for that as well. Just keep in mind it's the shortest trip closest to shore with a chance for red snapper. I think we covered everything. I kind of was rushing there at the end, but I think we covered everything. So I answered as many questions as I could. We're already way over on time here, guys. So my wife is pregnant, and I need to get back over to her. I've been working all day, and I cut out the internet to our house to do this show. and she needs to get the internet back. So I am capped at an hour and a half, no more. So we're going to give away some free trips here, and if I didn't get to answer your question in the video, I'm going to go back through and answer your questions after we end the video. So we're going to give away a 5-hour half day for 2 guests. Then we're going to give away a 10-hour all day for 2 guests. And then we're going to give away a 39-hour for 1 guest. Now, in order to win, you have to message the Hubbard's Marina Facebook page or email info at Hubbard's Marina, your full name, your full home address, including the zip code, and your phone number within an hour or so. You can't tune in the beginning of the video, comment on something, and then come back 3 hours later after you're done doing whatever you're doing and win the free trips. It's for people watching the show. That's why we try to keep it fair for you guys. So if we call your name and you win a free trip, shoot me a message on Hubbard's Marina Facebook or email me ASAP. All right, guys? So let's see who won a 5-hour half day for 2 guests. You guys ready? Drum roll, please. Hopefully somebody's excited out there to win some free fishing trips. Let's see here. Who won the 5-hour trip? The 5-hour trip winner is Petty Swigger. Been coming to Florida for several years now, taking many family and friends on the party boat trip. So that's pretty cool. I appreciate it, Penny. Thanks for your continued patronage with us at Hubbard's Marina. Now, again, if we call your name and you win a free fishing trip opportunity, you do have to either message our Hubbard's Marina Facebook page or email info at hubbardsmarina.com in order to claim that free trip. So let's see here. Let's see who won the 10-hour all day for 2. So 10-hour all day for 2. Let's see who won that. Drum roll, please. 10-hour all day for 2. $180 value from Hubbard's Marina for Neil from Saginaw, Michigan. Neil from Saginaw. Congratulations, Neil, for winning a 10-hour all day for 2 people. And hopefully, I'm glad I didn't try to pronounce your last name. Don't want to butcher anybody's last name. So, big winner on the way now. Who's going to win the 39-hour trip? Who's going to win it? Make sure you all tune in to our daily live Facebook videos. Every morning we do a little live Facebook video, tell you what's going on that day, what we've been catching that day. Don't forget to tune in next week. We're going to have another live stream fishing show. We do those every Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. I'll pop into the comments here, into the little chat boxes. I'm going to pop in there our new URL for our latest fishing conversation or live Q&A show. We do these every Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. So if you enjoyed the show tonight, comment or click that URL that I'm about to post, and that'll give you a opportunity to either comment going or interested on the event, and that's how you're going to stay in tuned, and you'll be able to know next time we're going to start a show, and that way you'll have chances to win even more free trips. So make sure you check out that Facebook event page that I just put in the comments for me. And now let's see who won the 39-hour trip. Let's see. 39-hour free fishing trip for 1 person goes to Jay Profit. There you go. He wanted to know how to find red snapper. We're going to show you, Jay. Come on out and join us. Remember, if you want a free trip, shoot me a message to the Hubbard's Marina Facebook page. Shoot me an email to info@hubbardsmarina. Come out and join us at Hubbard's Marina, or continue to enjoy our show, and hopefully you're going to catch more fish on your boat or your buddy's boat. Remember, if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too darn busy. We'll see you next Sunday night. That's 7 days from today at 8:30 p.m. for another great show. Don't forget about Fox 13 every Friday morning. Share your fishing information and photos with us. We'll see you tomorrow morning for the sunrise, guys. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Have a good night.